Welcome to my conversations with Deborah. I always say, but want to say bilingual, a bi-coastal discussion with myself, Malcolm Berman, and Deborah
And
Manning.
I'm Deborah Manning, and I'm here in Greenville, South Carolina,
Is
a
it
native
still there?
of California for a number of years until 5 years ago. My husband and I moved here with our cats to Greenville, South Carolina, sight unseen, and bought a house. And happily ever after, we're very, very happy. Although last night was a little interesting.
Yeah, well, we have to tell the folks now. This is, what's the day? 26th?
Oh my goodness. 26th.
It's the 26th, and it's the day after tornadoes were running all through the south and the southeast. Is this your first experience with a tornado?
Yes, it is. And fortunately, I went through all the earthquakes, being a native Californian, and I believe that I like the tornadoes better. If you're going to have a natural disaster, I think tornadoes are probably the way to go. However, I do must say that I have terrible, terrible empathy for the people in Alabama and Arkansas who saw some horrific wind. And in fact, um, we were given warnings about 3 or 4 days ago, and you start to prepare. And how you prepare, obviously, is getting all of the stuff could possibly fly around the house and your yard with winds. And fortunately, here in Greenville, we're about 3 miles north of downtown. We're right up against the Blue Ridge Mountains, so a lot of that tornadic activity is mitigated. However, however, last night, okay.
Last night,
I wear a Fitbit, okay, because I'm into this health stuff. I'm still a Californian. I'll always be a Californian, okay. So I'm monitoring my health and sleep and all of that. And the Fitbit showed that at around 1:45, yours truly kind of awoke for some strange oddball reason. Now, I don't recall waking up at 1:45, but apparently there was a tremendous decrease in the barometric pressure. Now, ask my cats, because we have 6 of them here, and all 6 of them are going, "Mom, something's going on. You gotta wake up."
Okay.
So I woke up at around 2 o'clock, about 2:15
Excuse
or
me,
so.
Deborah, to all us non-weather knowledgeable, what is the decrease in the barometric
Oh, what it
pressure
means
mean?
is that because obviously weather is controlled by the highs and the lows. So the high barometric pressure gives you beautiful sunny days, and the low barometric pressure gives you a lot of the clouds and a lot of the rain. And in this particular case, as the barometric pressure went down, the tornadic activity. Now, we could see this line of clouds because, once again, I'm a weather junkie, and I could see on my little cell phone all of these various apps. Now, Jim Cantori, and it's amazing. This is a great time to be on the internet and doing all of this stuff, because Jim Cantori, actually from the Weather Channel, head guy, said, "You need to go to this particular app, and this is what we use on the Weather Channel." And sure enough, it showed this line that was coming in from Atlanta. It had already managed to cross through Mississippi and was on its way to Atlanta. And we were warned by our weather people here that it could hit at 2 o'clock in the morning. And sure enough, it did. And it was this line that apparently marched across the South. I guess it was like Sherman's March in the Civil War. And it just took apart so many different communities. Now, when it hit here, as I say, I woke up around 2:15 or so, and it was very, very odd. Weather can really make you appreciative of your size in the universe. And it certainly did last night, because I heard this very odd sound. Um, Not the freight train, because I experienced the freight train when the straight line winds were coming in, but a very interesting growl. And like I say, the cats really got very, very upset and were trying to wake up both me and my husband Fish. And we finally woke up around 2:15. And the sounds of this, almost like a growl, and it was outside because the wind was coming up, and the trees were really starting to move. I'm not talking a little bit. I'm not talking the swaying like this. I'm talking whom, whum, whum. And it was quite alarming at this point. Then the rain started to come in. And I'm not just talking rain, I'm talking rain, rain,
It's
to
known
the
as
point where I could look across.
torrential.
You could look across and could not see the front door of our neighbors. And we had already been prepared because fortunately we have a basement here, and we were already prepared. We had the cat carriers lined up because the last time we had to go into the basement when we had another tornado warning, we made the made the mistake of not keeping cat carriers upstairs. We kept them downstairs. So as we gathered each one of the cats, when we were told by our weather people, it's time to find your safe space, we grabbed these cats. Well, Gracie, our little girl cat, who people have already seen, our
Yeah,
little
she
gray
did
and white one,
introduce.
she's very demure and she's very prim and very proper. There was only one slight problem was we opened up the door to go to the basement, which she clearly knows. She clearly knows the basement contains a sausage making machine that tears apart all little cats that go downstairs. That way we keep them from going downstairs. So we open up the door and we start to walk downstairs, and poor Gracie is screaming and then proceeds to pee all over Fish. And it was quite a scene. So now we've gotten smart. We put all the cat carriers up in front, and now the cats figure it's cat condo time. So we've gotten them to at least realize, okay, the cat carriers are not the haven of death. They could be actually a lot of fun to play around in. We didn't have to use the cat carriers. However, I do have to say that as it came through, and I mean, it literally, you could the barometric pressure you could truly feel, and the sounds were just astonishing, absolutely astonishing. And yet we wake up this morning, Malcolm, it's like 83 degrees,
Yeah.
bright sunny. It is fabulous weather. And now I understand that same storm is now up in your neck of the woods, up in New York, doing some, crazy things.
Well, if you remember, I ain't in New York anymore. I'm
I
in
know,
Los
I know, I
Angeles.
know. I know, but your heart is still in New York.
Well, like you say, you're still California, and I've only been living out in LA for 40 years. But if somebody asks me where I'm from, I say New York.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, the question I have, I've been through one major earthquake in '94, but I've had different rumbles. And I know when I have the rumble, even in the earthquake, what you do is sort of like you hold yourself down and you're waiting. It's sort of like that, that minute seems like it's an hour. Like you're waiting for the next quake or you're waiting for the next rumble. Is that the same way with tornadoes? Are you waiting for, the real wind to come and blow you from Kansas to?
Well, it's very interesting. Like I said, the tornado will give you a warning insofar as the sound. And the straight line wind that we had about 3 years ago that really tore things apart, the huge trees. We are surrounded by 100-foot oak trees here. And that sound, if you want to hear it, you can hear it on the Weather Channel's Tornado Alley. And they talk about it sounding like a freight train. And in fact, it does sound like that. I frankly thought it was a truck that was coming down the Poinsett Highway, which is right behind us. And when I suddenly realized, wait a minute, that's not a truck sound, that is something different. This sound, however, was more high pitched. And fortunately, we had taken out a number of our 100-foot oaks. Griswold, I loved Griswold, but it unfortunately was leaning over our house. Nothing like the possibility of 20 tons of oak tree falling on your home.
Yeah,
so we had to eliminate that, but I was so glad that we did, because I kept some of the lights on. We keep lights in our trees, and the lights will normally kind of move around, kind of twinkling, what have you. Oh no, not last night. Those puppy dogs were moving anywhere from 2 to 3 feet back and forth, and where the Leland cypresses were too. But it was a higher pitched sound, so I didn't have the kind of fear that I had with the first time, which was once again that horrible sound of a freight train as it came on through. But it was sobering. It was sobering, and it does give you a deep appreciation of your place in the world. And there, Miss Gracie, hi, sweetie
And she's
pie.
making her appearance.
She is. She had a little bit of kibble, so she's happy now. She eats kibble one kib at a time, and then she's very polite. What have
Well,
you?
well, I have a feeling that she likes the camera.
I think she does. I think she
That
does. Miss
she
Gracie,
feels special. I mean,
come
she's
here.
sitting up there royally, and of course,
She is. She's quite the kitten. What a good girl you are. But I have to tell you that Gracie, as soon as the thunder and lightning comes in, I'll tell you, she is heading for the hills. She is underneath the master bedroom. There is no way you can pry her out. And the rest of the cats are all very, it was funny because yesterday afternoon, even our big cat, Sylvester, our big tuxedo cat, he is the sheriff. He rules everything. But at this point, he walked out a little bit about mid-afternoon. He said, "You want to go out, visit your girlfriends, Julia?" He said, "Yeah." Went
yeah.
back inside. Once again, I mean, it's like, you know that with earthquakes, cats, animals, dogs, they know what's going on.
Animals have the sense, and they say because they could feel, because
Yeah,
their paws are on the ground all the time, and they could feel the certain rumbles. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that you have like about 10, 15 minutes
yeah,
with the earthquakes.
yeah,
But I know, aside from earthquakes and tornado, I mean, earthquakes and tornadoes, if, as you say, you feel so insignificant when nature calls. I
yeah.
mean, I've been through a lot like thunderstorms with the lightning coming out, in an island, as I say. I think you mentioned I had a summer house in Fire Island.
All right.
Sometimes they had these thunderstorms
Mhm.
and of course you always see the lightning before,
Yes,
because the bolt of lightning, because the light travels faster than sound.
yes,
But you
indeed.
see the bolt of lightning, and then you tense up because there's going to be a thunderclap
Yes,
that
yes.
almost shatters the eardrum.
Well, it was the thunder that took place here last night was enough so that the house literally was shaking. So that was very interesting. That was very, very interesting. So we knew that something different was coming this way. Now we're expecting another line to come through. We believe it's going to be late Saturday night
Mm.
and through Sunday. So it'll be kind of interesting to see. Now, normally we will have these types of storms. Um, March seems to be a key month here in South Carolina to get these types of storms. And you asked me earlier whether or not these were more violent storms than what we normally would have. Um, I don't have enough history here to really know. I understand that it's not necessarily. Um, Although once again, I kind of scratch my head and think to myself, now, if this were a tornado prone area, I would think that every house would have a basement because literally when we go downstairs in our basement area, because we've outfitted it like an earthquake situation where we've got a complete kitchen down there, all the food that you need, freezers, places to sleep, read, all of that. I am a little astounded that not a lot of people do have protection. And the other thing that's interesting to me is that they don't have tornado sirens here for some strange reason. Now we have something on the cell phones that do alert us. Thank heavens for that. But not a lot. I guess a lot of people have cell phones, but how do you guarantee that everybody has a cell phone? But once again, the whole neighborhood stuck together, and everybody was checking on one another, even in the middle of the night. And that feeling of togetherness and of neighborhood very special here in South Carolina, and that's indicative of the state. It truly is.
Well, I know when we had the earthquake, the
Mhm.
major earthquake, people were knocking on our doors. All the neighbors were walking up and down the streets
Yeah,
because they wanted to see if you need anything, if
yeah,
there was anybody injured, and
yeah,
so
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
So I think at times like that, people become friendly.
absolutely, and we need to get more of that. So let's move on to other things. President Biden had his first press conference yesterday afternoon.
Okay, well, what did you think?
Um, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I truly, truly do. But I blame the press. I blame the press. I blame the press for not asking key questions. And I think that the love affair that the press is having, especially the PBS reporter who talked about how wonderful he was and blah blah blah. That it was embarrassing to me. He was not asked questions about the upcoming tax increases, which are not only going to impact the quote unquote rich, but are going to impact the people like us. And we're not particularly rich. We may be wealthy because we have wonderful, wonderful families and good life, but we're not particularly rich. And I'm concerned about that when I'm hearing anywhere from 10 to 12% income tax. And that concerns me. It also concerns me with the blame game again and using Trump as another scapegoat for this situation on the border. The border situation is growing and growing. When you have the cartels now having wristbands on these immigrants to find out whether or not they've paid their money to get through or not, these poor people are paying anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 to get across the border, and if they don't have that money, they're finding out now that they're carrying drugs, and it's a crazy situation. And when reporters asked, hold on for just a second, when the reporters asked why they were coming across the border, Biden says because he's a nice guy, and I guess I'm a nice guy, he said. And I said, what do you mean he's a nice guy? Even the president of Mexico said because Biden invited them over, that's the reason that we have people from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala coming through Mexico trying to get into the United States. I don't understand. I don't understand why he's representing only a portion of America. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be talked down to. I'm not a child. And I felt as though in many cases he was patting us on the head, be good kids, and this is on a prior conversation where he said, if you're good, then maybe you might have a barbecue with your family on 4th of July. Well, I don't want to be treated that way. I'm an adult and we have adults, and I'm not understanding why he's acting the way he is. I was disappointed. I wanted to hear more factual information and not just pablum, which is pretty much what I heard.
Well, first of all, the thing that you said that what I heard the wristbands were is that whoever, the parents of the children gave the contact numbers of the relatives in the United States. So if someone the kid had a wristband, the number corresponded to an aunt or an uncle or a brother that lived here, so that the Border Patrol, or that the authorities could call them up.
Well, that may be the case, but they still have 40,000 unaccompanied minors.
Right. Well, the problem is, well, two things. Number one, yes. I mean, what was Biden supposed to do? Throw them back to Mexico to starve, as he said?
Well, I think that maybe enforcing the law, it seemed to be working under the prior administration, where they were asking people to stay in Mexico until such time as their asylum case could be heard. And as it is right now, I understand that many of the immigrants are being bused to wherever they want to go here in the United States. There's also a situation where we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and they're showing now that 10% of those immigrants coming across the border have COVID. So I'm not understanding.
But first of all, I haven't heard that the adults were, aside from the ones that were crossing the border illegally, might have gotten in. But the adults supposedly are not being let in. It's only the children that are being let in.
Well, our problem is this: we don't have news media down there because, as Biden said, he's not going to allow independent news media down there until such time as the problem is fixed. So we don't have any information whatsoever.
Well, that's what I agree with you. But again, I think number one, I think he inherited a lot of it. Number two, the mere volume of it. And as a matter of fact, there's on PBS, they had one of the judges that's on the board to what do you call it, that decides whether the immigrant can stay here or not.
Mhm.
And she said they are very, very understaffed,
Mhm.
and that they
Well,
don't have enough.
that's the reason that the prior administration says, stay in Mexico until such time as we can get a chance to be able to review your asylum inquiry.
Well, that's what they're saying. That's what Biden is saying. Don't go. Don't come here. But I have a feeling that a lot of that misinformation that's handed out in Honduras and El Salvador is basically the misinformation that's sent in by either foreign countries or who's trying to create that situation, the misinformation. Because as far as when I've listened to Biden talking, he said, stay in your own country. Go to your own country and apply. Don't come to the United States. You won't get in.
Well, I think unfortunately, I mean, there was a couple of times even during the campaign debates where he said, yes, I would allow everybody in and I wouldn't enforce the laws. And people
Yeah,
hear that.
I
People
haven't
hear
heard that.
that.
I've heard where people where the opposition, oh, there's going to be open borders, but I've never heard him say that there's going to be open borders, nor the Democratic Party, or very few people that's part of the party saying, oh, we're going to open the borders and let
Well,
everybody.
my question would be then, why was the prior administration's immigration policy, why was, when it was working, because it was working,
It
why
was never working.
why in the world was it changed when in fact it was working?
Well, first of
We
all, it
didn't
was never
have the huge
working.
number of people across the border as we do now.
The policy that it was never working. What was working is maybe we didn't have as much people, but we created, the crises in other countries along the border, in Mexico. There, the crisis was there, so what we did is turned our back on that. So I don't know what's happened. I don't know you're frozen right now, and I don't hear you talking.
Well, I do know that when the Mexican, no problem. The Mexican president essentially said that he said the prior administration's policy was in fact working and they were keeping control of the hordes of people coming on through. Now, once again, I love it. I love immigration, but I want the right people to be coming through. And I do have a problem when youngsters as young as 4 and 5 years old are being shoved across the border. They're being accompanied apparently by cartel members. I mean,
well, the cartel members aren't getting, the adults aren't getting in.
No. But they are being presented across the border and the kids are being told to go on across. And this is a scam. This is a way that cartels are making millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Well,
this is craziness.
The cartels are smuggling illegal dope, more illegal narcotics.
I understand, because when you don't have $4,000, you're carrying fentanyl to get through.
But more illegal narcotics are arriving at airports, are arriving at shipping lanes, on shipping boats.
Well, they're also coming through the border. And I must say that I do have a problem with Vice President Harris laughing about the fact when a reporter's asking, when are you going to the border? And she's laughing away at it. I mean, this is a serious issue.
Well,
I'm tired of this administration patting us on the head and saying, be a good boy, be a good girl. We're going to take care of everything.
Well, that I haven't heard, and I've heard, I haven't seen it. I've heard it commented. I don't know whether she was laughing. Did you see the tape of it or what she did?
Yeah, I did.
So I don't know whether she was laughing or because a lot of the times when something happens that's very ironic, I sort of, laugh. My wife says, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Well, I'm really not laughing. I'm just making a comment. There's a subtlety. I'm not sure whether she was laughing, saying that's funny, or she was laughing for saying, well, that's ironic."
Well, you can give that credence to her. However, I know that in many cases that same brush was not given for President Trump. So, but bottom line is she was not taking it seriously. I saw the tape and I don't understand how a vice president can say, well, nope, not today.
Well, I
thinking it's funny. It's not funny.
I know, I didn't comment, and so I can't comment on it.
I know.
I mean, there's certain things which I agree with you. There's certain things but I mean, I don't know why that we don't spend more money and take the kids and put them in an area, maybe even in the United States. The adults I could see, forget about it. I mean, the adults, again, according to at least what Biden is saying, is that adults aren't getting in, the kids are, and we have to do something with the kids. And maybe there isn't, some people are taking advantage of this situation, but I don't know what you do about it. I agree with what I forget who the HHS secretary is, but to build things in the other in the countries they're coming from, is have them apply there and give them sort of like a Marshall Plan for Central America and South America, like what we did, because it's a problem. It's a problem. Like, what do you do? This is on our border. You know, if Syria was on our border, the Syrian refugees would be coming in. If the Yemen was on our border, the Yemenites would be in. So it's
and we need to control our border.
We need to control our border, but we need
to know who's coming in.
But we need to do it in a
why
humane
they're coming in. Pardon?
We need to do it in a humane way. Why they're coming in, we know. I mean, well, we know, even if they're smuggling drugs, that's why they're coming in. But they're coming in because their countries, either it's controlled, well, governments suck. I have to say that the governments are corrupt. But it's either the gangs are threatening to kill them, or the government is threatening to kill them. It's either way, whichever way you go, you're dead.
Well, one of the other issues that was also brought up this week was there was a DC Circuit appeals court judge that was very, very concerned with the one-party rule by the news media. And he said this is very dangerous. And one of those things I do have to agree. It is very, very dangerous. We're not getting both sides. And this move to try and silence Fox News. In fact, Biden didn't even call on Peter Doocy from Fox News. All he got were softball questions from the adoring news media. That's not news media. That's PR flax. And they need to be journalists who are actually asking key questions about Biden's policy.
Well, again, Fox News, it depends where you talk about Fox News. Tucker Carlson has said he's not a newsman. He's an opinion man.
But Peter Doocy is a news journalist. And why in the world was a conservative, quote unquote, conservative news reporter not allowed to ask a single question? And yet all of these softball questions went to President Biden. I think the other thing that was amazing to me was, once again, I have never seen a president need cheat sheets. He had cheat sheets. He's reading off cheat sheets. I don't get it. He's got a real problem here.
First of all, he's been in office 6 weeks now.
This is his first news conference, and he's using cheat sheets. Does that kind of bother you?
No, I use notes. But when you were teaching, did you use notes? Of course you did. You want to make sure everything is in place. There are certain talkers or lecturers who are fine. I mean, who are great. I mean, I think we don't like Obama's policy, but he was very good as an orator. Clinton was good as an orator. And there's certain people.
And Trump was good as an orator. He never needed notes.
Excuse me, excuse the expression, Trump sucked.
No, he didn't. You know that.
Trump was always.
He didn't. No. But let's look at it. He didn't need notes. Clinton didn't need notes. Obama didn't need notes.
Yes,
and Biden needs notes, and he was reading off the notes.
Yeah, I saw that.
That really concerns me.
What I thought was stupid, some of those questions they asked. There's one female reporter, I don't know where she's from. She said, "Do you plan to run, in 24?"
Thank you.
He's in the office 6 weeks.
Thank you.
Do you plan to run? Hey, I'll be 82. I don't know if I'll be alive.
No, it's absurd. We actually need reporters. We need journalists. We don't need PR flax. And this is what we have, PR flax. And that's what the DC judge said, that we are endangering our democracy because we don't have the facts. We have flack, but we don't have facts.
We don't have the facts on either side. It's not
Well,
only,
journalists are not
not only-
asking questions.
There are no journalists on either side. Very few.
They are not asking the questions, and they need to ask questions because we as the American public deserve to have the answers. We truly do.
Another issue that I want to talk to you about is that.
What's that?
What do you think about the Georgia's changing their laws, the election laws?
You know what? I don't have a problem with it. The reason I don't have a problem is first and foremost, the Constitution says the states are to make their own laws.
Right.
That's what's very important. Okay. Secondarily, I know that here in South Carolina, as I'm hoping in all states, there needs to be identification. I cannot buy a bottle of booze, as old as I look, without showing identification. I want to show identification. I want everyone to show identification as to who the devil they are when they do the most important act of our democracy. Vote. I also do not want to have harvesting, ballot harvesting. It happened in my old hometown in Orange County, California, and it overturned elections, which incidentally, this last year, they went back to the Republicans. So I don't want to have ballot harvesting. You have no way of identifying who the devil is filling out those ballots. It's called balloting. It's called voting. It needs to be private. It needs to be done by those people who are citizens that in fact are the ones that are going to be impacted by their representatives. That's very, very important. And I mean, it's the linchpin of a democracy.
Well, we don't think there should be any mail-in ballots.
Do I think there should be mail-in ballots?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with absentee ballots.
But there's no
Absentee ballots, you have to prove who you are.
You have to. How do you prove who you are?
You do it by a notary. You also have, for example, here in South Carolina, you do your ballot, and then in fact you go to a notary. The notary then notarizes it, makes sure that it's fine.
By the way, I haven't heard that. Is a notary free?
The notary, if you go down to the state in terms of the voter registration, yes, it's free. You have to show identification.
You have to travel there.
You have to show identification.
And how readily available are these places?
Once again, each one of the states need to make sure that things are readily available.
Right.
There should not be a suppression of the vote. And for people to have said that there is suppression of the vote, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But I do you not want to have voter ID?
No, I want voter ID, but I want where voter ID is available to the poor, which it doesn't seem to be.
Well, voter ID simply says that you have to either have a driver's license or you have to have some sort of state identification. You've got to make the effort to go down and get yourself identified. You cannot buy booze. You can't buy cigarettes unless you show some identification. And that you can vote without identification.
But also certain of these places are like within, in some of these places, especially in the rural areas, or 2-3 hour drive from where that person lives.
Well, once again, I think that, for example, here in South Carolina, when we got our driver's license, they were very, very specific. I not only had to have my prior license, which was out of California, but I had to have my Social Security card. I also had to have a utility bill that showed exactly where I lived. And then lastly, I needed to have a birth certificate. Now, she apologized as she was taking all this information in. I said, no, you need to know who the devil I am. And that's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure that citizens are voting. I don't want to have a wholesale ballot harvesting of people that we have no idea whether or not they are eligible to vote. I don't want 12-year-olds voting. I don't want non-citizens voting. Well, they need to be citizens of the United States. And showing some identification is not that big a deal. I mean, you're assuming, and that's very funny, that people assume that the poor are stupid. The poor are not stupid. They know how to get identification. They know how to do it. They're not dumb.
Well, that's nothing, and I go another way. I don't know if I believe in democracy.
Oh,
I think I believe in. I think it was Plato, a benevolent dictatorship. If
yeah.
if wise men, if philosophers, if kings can't become philosophers, then philosophers should become kings. It's I disagree with this whole. Well, number one, we can get on a whole different conversation with that because I
Sure.
think you have, which goes back. I think you have to have a certain amount of education, and I think you have to know about the facts. But I don't know how you can do that. I don't think people should be voting for because of 10-second spots on television or listening to these people on TV who have no facts. Whether it be Fox or whether it be MSN.
Well, since most of it is left leaning, I would imagine you probably feel like it's okay because that
No,
would maintain the
no,
Democratic side of things.
no, it's not necessarily left leaning. The people who are right leaning.
Oh, the entire press is left leaning, for God's sakes. It's honest to God. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
number one, people don't read anymore.
Well,
It's
not reading, it's social media. And in fact, the Senate had that hearing yesterday, and good old Jack Dorsey, president of Twitter, admitted the fact that they made a boo-boo when they censored the Washington Post story about Hunter Biden, his laptop, and his relationship with Chinese businesses, that he made a mistake.
Well, what's happening with that, by the way?
What's happening? They're supposedly investigating, but since we have, unfortunately, his father in office, I mean, geez, I wonder what's happening. I wonder what could be going on.
Actually, I've been hearing a lot the other way, especially since a lot of the justices or the judges now have been supported by have been appointed by Trump.
So what have you been hearing? What have you been hearing about the investigation?
Where a lot of the cases are being suppressed because of the judges, which I didn't realize that how many judges that weren't brought up in front of in the legislature because of the majority, the Senate majority speaker.
Well, let's go back to the Hunter Biden. So you're saying that the investigation is continuing with Hunter Biden, or it's not continuing?
I haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
And what do I think is going to happen to it? I think the same thing that's going to happen, it's going to be brushed underneath the table. I mean, we have a situation where we have an avowed adversary, China, who now is connected directly to the president of this United States. That's a real problem. Now, so far, Biden has been firm with it, although I do have to say that the Alaskan meeting with the CCP, we had a 2-minute introduction by our side and then a 20-minute lecture by the CCP about human rights. Now, once again, I would say that like about 2.5 minutes in, I would have enjoyed the fact that our side would have said, okay, time out. We cannot listen to this anymore. And they were talking about BLM and blah, blah, blah. You know what? They've got some real solid problems. And this is a group that wants to overtake the United States in terms of dominance.
And they probably will.
I don't want to go communist.
First question. What do you think about the filibuster? Do you think they should do away with it or continue with it or make changes in it?
I'm a little concerned when this administration calls it racist, because I don't believe it's racist. I do think that when you have moderates like Joe Manchin from West Virginia saying that we should not do away with the filibuster, I have to listen to what he has to say. I'm concerned that our lawmakers will not be listening to the minority, which at this point is the Republicans. But once again, I did find it very interesting that when Mitch McConnell, when he was in the driver's seat with this, decided to not get rid of the filibuster because he was concerned in future generations how the minority of lawmakers would have a voice. We need the yin, we need the yang. We need to have both sides of stories to be able to get to a compromise. And if you don't have the ability of being able to have the minority to bring up points and to block legislation that perhaps needs to go back and meet compromise, I think we got a real problem. I don't want a dictatorship here. I don't want a dictatorship. I don't want one party rule. We need to have two-party rule.
But if both sides stand pat and there's no compromise, do you think the majority party should be able to put legislation through?
No, you need to have compromise. It's like a marriage.
Okay,
If you were standing, no, if you were standing solid on one position and Anna was standing solid on another position, would it be because you were bigger that you could go ahead and overrule her position? No, you would have to come to compromise, would you not, Malcolm? You need to come to compromise.
Well, and if we don't, we get a divorce.
But the bottom line is you would come to compromise.
Not necessarily 50% of marriages end in divorce.
I understand that, but between you and Anna.
Well, me and Anna, a different situation. But we have a situation where we can't put any immigration laws through for the last, 20, 30 years, and we haven't changed it. We can't put any gun control laws through because it has a block. We can't, nominate, certain legislators because it's blocked. Like McConnell has blocked a lot of the judges that going back to Obama wanted. One of the things that they did in the filibuster, he filibustered, I forgot, it was, I think, over 200 judges that Obama wanted to appoint. And the thing with filibusters, with being a racist, originally from what at least I see, which I haven't seen the other press, the right side say, is a lot of the filibuster was for the Jim Crow laws. And a lot of them, if they go from the 1920s and 30s, were basically to put voting rights through, which was filibustered by the Senate. Anyway.
Well, that was past history. And I think at this point right now, we need to force these lawmakers to do compromise. They need to do the people's work, not just the work of the party, either Democratic or Republican.
But they're not. So we're standstill. The legislature is not doing anything except talking. I mean, especially right now with the gun control, which I think is ridiculous that you could buy a semi-automatic weapon that fires 50 rounds in less than a minute. And they say, well, that's what the Constitution. This is what founding fathers went. The founding fathers, they had the gun. That's
an aberration. That's an aberration. That's an aberration. And I think at this point right now, because people ask me, well, you're a gun, you're a gun supporter. And I said, yeah. And I said, but I do not support the situation where you've got these types of massive magazine capabilities. Right. I
can see you owning a gun. And number two, I think if you buy a gun, you should be they should test you if you could use it. You can't get
not only that,
a driver's license without showing it.
Absolutely. You and I are 100% agreed on that. I'll be doggone if people do not, they buy a weapon and they better, pardon my language, goddamn, get some training on things, because so many people don't know how to use those weapons. I know that when Tom and I were doing our PI work, that's exactly what we had to do. Is we had to get trained. We bought weapons and we got trained
and make it renewable.
That's right. And
have a background check. I mean, I'm not talking about banning of weapons. Not going that far. I'm not talking about banning. You have a perfect right to own a weapon. But do you know how to use a weapon? Anyway,
that's where I think, and this is where I start to really break with the group. What's that?
You realize we've been on for 40 minutes?
Oh, no, we're sorry, folks. Doggone it.
And our show is let's save something because we can have something to talk about next week. If your house is still there, hopefully.
It will be. It's that brick house. I got to tell you, like the Three Little Pigs, it's that brick house.
I'm sure. But be careful. Listen to the weather report. Go down to your basement. Take your kitty cats with you. If they don't take
my dear husband. And thank you so much for the phone calls and the care. I really do appreciate it very much, Malcolm.
Okay, kid, be careful, and I will speak to you next week. I will speak to you before, but we'll be on next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.